Now, let's move on to another important topic. Brexit, of course, continues to roll on, and the government may be forced to abandon its plans to remove EU law from British statutes by the end of the year, following significant challenges in the House of Lords. The former Cabinet Minister, Jacob Rees-Mogg, is urging the government to plough ahead. Joining us now is Joël Reland, Associate Research Executive from UK in a Changing Europe. Joël, welcome to the show.
Hi, Aisha.
So just tell us what's meant to be happening with all of these bits of outstanding EU legislation, which of course has been woven into our legislation.
Yeah, so basically what this bill is doing is it's taking all the EU rules and regulations which we adhere to over decades as an EU member state. It's called retained EU law. It was copied over onto the UK statute book during the Brexit process. And it's saying all that legislation will expire at the end of 2023. It will disappear unless a government minister actively retains or reforms specific pieces of legislation. So what you're looking at is potentially thousands of pieces of regulation which are vital to kind of the everyday functioning of society, environmental protections, worker protections around the number of hours you're allowed to work a week, rules which govern medical supplies, getting them to you for an emergency medical procedure. These could all disappear at the end of the year unless a minister makes a choice to keep it on the statute book. So there's naturally quite a lot of concern around the decision-making around that process.
Now, my understanding is that, there's a lot of these laws. There's around 4,000 laws. Is this workload achievable? I just remember from my own time in government when I was a government advisor, and we were actually working on the Equality Act, which was codifying and pulling together a lot of existing legislation. And that took a long time. It took years to do. How feasible is it for every piece of legislation to be gone through by civil servants, special advisors, government ministers, and a decision made on it?
Yeah, this is the crux of the issue. It's that 2023 deadline. You're asking civil servants to take decades worth of regulation and review it all within months, which is probably insurmountable challenge. If you imagine normally one piece of regulatory reform, you'd be looking at months, if not years of consultation to understand the pros and cons, the benefits of the existing piece of regulation, and then designing a replacement process if you need that. You're asking government departments to do thousands of times this work in the space of just a few months. It seems it's never been done before. There's never been any kind of precedent for doing something like this. And there's naturally a lot of concern that what it leads to is that either regulations disappear because you think, oh, we don't really need that one, but then it turns out it was actually really technically important to some procedure that you didn't have time to think of, or you design replacement legislation, but you've done it so quickly that it's really quite poorly done. Businesses don't have time to get to grips with it. And it creates more problems and just clogs up the machine. It also clogs up the Whitehall machine. Civil servants who probably want to be focusing on, economic reform measures at the moment to deal with the cost of living crisis, the NHS, are spending all their time on arcane bits of EU regulation. So there are lots of reasons why it's maybe not a great way to proceed with reviewing EU law.
Yes, it'd be interesting to see if that deadline is stuck to, or I suspect it will slip. But thanks very much for that update. Very, very interesting. That's Joël Reland, Research Associate from the think tank UK in a Changing Europe.